Okay, why did you decide to run for Congress?
I decided to run for Congress really because just watching what's happening in Washington, I really believe that the extremes on both sides of the aisle are really driving the conversation, and the folks in the middle, which I believe make up the majority of the country, are really getting their voices drowned out, and whether it's by special interest groups or whatever. I really believe that the major issues in this country can be solved, but we need to have some bipartisan support. And with the folks that we have there now, I believe we're never going to get there until we can actually start sitting down like adults and compromising on some of these big issues.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any role models that you looked up to in your public career?
Well, I think growing up, probably my role models were my three older sisters. My mom passed away when I was very young, so they kind of stepped into the role of my mother and helped to raise me. And there's people who always taught me the value of getting a good education, integrity, standing up and doing the right thing even when it's not popular. And that's probably what helped prompt me a little bit too to run for Congress. This congressional district was represented by a friend of mine, Richard Hanna, up until 2016. And I think he was a really independent-minded person who really worked on both sides of the aisle and wasn't afraid to stand up to his own party. And when he retired, I thought about running for Congress back in 2016, but decided not to. And this time around, I really thought about it a lot more and thought, remembering the words of my sisters, if you see something wrong, Anthony, do something about it. And I see a lot of things that are wrong in the country right now. And instead of sitting back and complaining, I decided to do something about it, and that's why I'm running for Congress.
Mm-hmm. What will be your agenda as a congressman?
I think my agenda is really the agenda that I hear from people every day on the campaign trail. So one of the things that I pledged when I first announced for Congress is that I was going to hold town hall meetings in every single county in the congressional district when I'm elected. And I'm doing that even now. I didn't want to wait till I'm elected. I've been doing that already. We have 3 of them coming up this month in July, and that will complete each county in the congressional district. But the issues that I hear about on the campaign trail, it's really, you're not hearing about the big national issues that you may hear every day on national news. People are concerned about their jobs. People are concerned about the economy. People are concerned about losing their health care. We have an aging population in this congressional district, so people are scared of losing Medicare or cutbacks on Social Security. We have an opioid crisis that's gripping this whole region, and we need to have more emphasis on treatment and prevention. Those are the things that I hear about on the campaign trail every day, and that's going to drive the agenda that I want to push forward when I get to Washington, because I think the most important thing of any elected official is you got to be a good listener. I don't know all the answers, but I want to learn from the folks that I represent, and that'll help me be a better representative when I get to Washington.
Mm-hmm. How will your experience in Washington prepare you, how will your experience in Albany prepare you for Washington?
Well, the one thing I learned in Albany is really how to work together. My closest colleague in government is Senator Joe Griffo. He's a Republican, I'm a Democrat, and we don't always see eye to eye on the issues. But on the big issues that help move this area forward, we do see eye to eye, and that's something I've learned a lot more in Albany, is how to work together with people, even if you have differences with them. So on major issues, Joe and I can put aside some of our differences, we can find compromise, and we can actually get some good things done for the area. We've done that, trying to bring more funding into the district for big infrastructure projects. We've done that, getting funding to renovate the Utica Auditorium so we can get the Comets here. Those are things that Joe and I were able to do together to help get things done. And to me, I don't care that Joe's a Republican. He's someone I want to work with, and I want to try and find those kind of people in Washington that I can work with to get things done in this area.
Mm-hmm. What is an issue that you want voters to focus on in this election?
I think I want voters to focus on, I've done a lot in terms of education during my time in the Assembly, and one of the things that I truly believe is that we have a lot of good paying jobs out there in this congressional district right now. a lot of jobs in the trades, a lot of jobs in advanced manufacturing, a lot of jobs in healthcare. And one of the things that I worked on in the state assembly was really preparing young people for the kinds of careers that are out there. So when I first got elected to the assembly, as a high school student, you know that the only option you had is a Regents diploma if you want to graduate high school. Well, I felt that from talking to local businesses and people in education, that not every student is the same, not every student learns the same, not every student is going to end up going to a four-year school. So we need to start putting programs in place in our high schools to prepare young people for the careers that are out there. And the area that I was particularly interested in is in career and technical education. So we got passed through the Board of Regents here in New York, which makes all the education policy, a new career and technical education diploma pathway, which many school districts are starting to adopt now. And the idea is that you can substitute some of your Regents requirements, the popular one is global studies, for career and technical education pathway. And then when you graduate high school, you'll graduate with basic entry-level certification in a particular field. Could be welding, could be carpentry, could be something in the healthcare field. And then the idea is to either advance that into a two-year school or go right into the workforce. And when you talk to a lot of employers in this region, they'll tell you that these certifications that they're looking for are almost, if not many times better than a four-year college degree. And these are paying people $50,000, $60,000 a year to start, which is a great living for our area.
Mm-hmm. What do you say to those who criticize the Democratic leadership currently in Washington?
Well, I'm one of those people. So I've taken a lot of heat because I have said that I'm not going to support Nancy Pelosi if I'm elected to be the Speaker. And I feel that it's really a time for a change in leadership on both sides of the aisle. We need some new faces. We need some fresh ideas. That's why I'm running for Congress, and I want to see a change on both sides. So I don't always agree with Democratic leadership and have really gone against the grain many times here in New York State, even against the governor who is the Democratic leader here in New York State. But we've had major differences on economic development issues. We've had major differences on public education issues. And I'm not afraid to speak out against him when I think he's wrong, or work with him when he's doing something that can help the area that I represent. And that's really what a legislator should do. Mm-hmm. And the same thing in Washington. You know, people say you don't criticize the president enough. Well, my job as a legislator is to work with the president when there's things that he or she someday is doing to help benefit the area. And if they're doing something that's going to hurt the people that I'm representing, it's my job as a legislator to speak up and speak loudly against those policies.
Speaking of the governor, many people say that Albany is also very corrupt. From your time in Washington, would you agree with those people? And what have you done to try and change that?
Absolutely. So there's been a lot of instances of people doing misusing their office in Albany for their own personal gain. The former Speaker of the Assembly, Sheldon Silver, is someone that was indicted and now convicted on charges for abusing his power. I was very happy to be a part of a small group of legislators, younger legislators, that really led the charge to oust Sheldon Silver from his role as Speaker. And we knew back then when we were doing this that it was risky. We all heard the stories of powerful Speaker and uprisings against him in the past, which failed. But I felt that he had abused his office, that the charges that he was facing at that time were very serious, and that he had to go. And fortunately, there was enough other younger members who didn't have an allegiance to him, who we were able to work with and really help remove him from office. Other things that I think really are the root of a lot of corruption is the money in politics. In New York State, we have a broken system of campaign finance laws, and one of the things that I've worked on that we seem to pass every year in the Assembly, but we can't get passed into law, is closing loopholes to allow all these dark money influences to come into the political process. So I've been a sponsor of legislation to get that dark money out of politics. In my race for Congress, I've said that I'm not taking any corporate PAC money whatsoever, so I am relying on individuals to fund my campaign, and that allows me to be more independent so I can speak up against a company like Spectrum, which I believe is taking advantage of people right now and raising their cable prices, or it allows me to speak up against the gas and oil companies, which I think are big beneficiaries of the tax cuts, but raising gas prices right now on consumers. So I think if you can get the money out of politics, the corruption will go down.
Mm-hmm. What is currently happening with the revitalization of this region?
Well, I think when I first took office back in 2011, we were probably at one of our lowest points as the country was really coming out of a recession. And a lot of folks said to me at that time, why would you go into office right now? I mean, there's nothing you can do to fix the problem. But I really believe that over the last 7 years, it's not just me, it's working with community leaders, it's working with Senator Griffo, it's working with people like the mayor and the county executive here as a team to really try and bring more attention to this area from Albany. I grew up in this region in the 80s and 90s. And at that point in time, companies were leaving downtown, people were leaving the city of Utica, and since then, since the last few years, we've really been able to bring more emphasis towards revitalization of this area where, people would always say, it's gonna, the money will go to Syracuse or Rochester or Buffalo or New York City, and we would always get left behind here in Utica. But we've been very successful working as a team to bring more funding to the area to help in the revitalization process. But we also have a lot of young people that are coming back into the area that are taking some chances and starting companies that are helping in the process too.
Mm-hmm. Why do you support the downtown location for the hospital? So
for me, I think the most important thing is that we get a new hospital in this area. We have 2 aging healthcare facilities that just aren't conducive to 21st century medicine. They lose a lot of money for the healthcare system because they're old and they continue to need renovations. And we want to have one facility where we can help attract better, younger doctors to the area and other specialties for this region. I support the downtown concept, just like the hospital board suggested, because number one is patient healthcare, and from a patient healthcare standpoint, that's the most central location because you have good transportation routes with the north-south arterial and Oriskany Boulevard and Genesee Street and other points of access. And 2, which is important but not as important as patient healthcare, this is an area of the city that's been blighted for many years, and a new healthcare facility like they did in downtown Buffalo will help revitalize that area and bring new businesses in, create more loft apartments. Hotels are already there for families who are coming to the area who have loved ones in the hospital. So ultimately, I think it's a good location for the